If you've been intrigued by what you've been seeing on this channel and are considering moving to Saipan, if you'd like a sunnier, simpler, slower lifestyle while still being part of the US, then start with the Saipan Living Relocation Guide, an A to Z reference of everything you'll need to adjust to life here on Saipan, Tinian, or Rota. Order here on
beyond the sea, somewhere waiting for me. My lover stands on golden sands and watches the ships that go sailing. Somewhere beyond the sea, she's there watching for me. If I could fly like birds on high, then straight to her arms I'd go sailing.
Subscribe.
You know, hear what the man say. If you've been intrigued by what you've been seeing on this channel and are considering moving to Saipan, If you'd like a sunnier, simpler, slower lifestyle while still being part of the US, then start with the Saipan Living Relocation Guide, an A to Z reference of everything you'll need to adjust to life here on Saipan, Tinian, or Rota. Order here on YouTube, on Amazon, or at saipanliving.com. Then consider a phone or Zoom consultation where you can ask any question at all to plan your move to Saipan. Then when you're ready to take the leap, you can sign up for a reconnaissance tour before you move, or a relocation tour. Visit different neighborhoods, see what life is like, get your paperwork in order, your PO box, your ID, so you can hit the ground running. As a bonus, if you sign up for any tour or consultation, you'll get a copy of the Fast Track Kit that has all the forms and documents and applications you need to start your residency. My name is Walt Goodridge. Let's make your move to Saipan simple, fast, and stress-free. If you've been by what you've been seeing on this channel and are considering moving to Saipan, if you'd like a sunnier, simpler, slower lifestyle. I'll repeat that. People who curse a lot are angry people. And why do I mention that? All right, I'll be doing a rant. I'll decide if I should do a rant later on to explain where that thought is coming from. But welcome to the channel, welcome to the live stream. My name is Walt Goodridge, and I am the Jamaican on Saipan. And if you're new to the channel, I've been living here since 2006. I'm originally from Jamaica. I went to college in the United States, worked as a civil engineer for several years, discovered Saipan in 2005, and then 2 months later in 2006, I was on a one-way flight here to live out my dream life. And over the years, I've written books about the island. I've participated in documentaries. I have done workshops here. I do tours on the island. So over the years, people have developed the habit of asking my opinions and observations on life here on Saipan. And if you have any questions, for example, if you're considering relocating, if you're just visiting, if you're doing World War II research, if you had a relative who was in the Battle of Saipan or the Battle of Tinian, and you'd like to do a pilgrimage to come here and see where your relative participated in battle, or if you are doing a video, for example, and you'd like someone to handle logistics and help you get things done for your video, you can contact me at Walt at Discover Saipan. Those are all things I've done for others over the years. So that's where some of my expertise comes from. I've written several books about the island, including Saipan Living Relocation Guide. And that brings me to my first announcement. The 2026 relocation guide is almost ready. I am putting the finishing touches on it right now. It will have up-to-date information. It will have tax forms completed. The tax forms that you would normally complete stateside are different from the ones, they're a mirror of the ones you will complete here, but there are certain differences. And just to give you a little bit of insight, here on Saipan, in the CNMI, the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, you would have to delineate your income between what's generated off island and what's generated on island. So on the forms, you'll say without, generated without the CNMI, and also generated within the CNMI. And those two are taxed differently. So I'll have forms in the relocation guide that will give two scenarios. One scenario for someone who is coming here, retiring, and living off Social Security, and we have a scenario of what your tax liabilities will be there. And then for someone who is relocating here to work, there are also differences in how you would report your taxes. So it's going to be a very thorough 2026 relocation guide. I have updated photos, I have updated information, figures, websites. So hopefully it will meet all of your meet and hopefully exceed all of your expectations. And feel free to ask any questions that come to mind, and we'll do our best to answer them. So the big announcement is that I've revamped the saipanliving.com website, and I would like to request that you visit www.saipanliving.com. Check out the new format. Let me know if I've made any errors, but there are several tiers of the relocation guide that you can order. And when it's released in less than 2 weeks, you'll get a secure link to download each bundle as well as certain bonuses and perks. I'm thinking, for example, of giving a perk of a breakdown of exactly where I shopped, which will amount to free advertising for some of the stores here. But I've had certain email exchanges with folks who wanted to know the prices of certain things. So, being the cheapskate that I am, when I first got here, I created a chart reminding me which stores had the best prices for which items, whether I'm buying butane canisters or whether I'm buying the bathroom tissue, or there are certain stores that have uh, better prices than others. So that's one of the perks that you'll get if you download the um, relocation guide at the basic, even at the basic level. And then every tier after that has what's included in the previous tier as well as some additional items. So please check it out, saipanliving.com, and give me some feedback on that. You can place your order now and you'll get the perks shortly thereafter. And then the full PDF when it's released in less than 2 weeks. And if you order on Amazon, which you're welcome to do, keep in mind that you will not get the additional perks that are offered on the saipanliving.com website. So it would be in your best interest to order directly from there. Okay, so let's see, other announcements. Later in the broadcast, if I decide to, I might do a rant on some of my pet peeves. I'll save some of those for later, but all right. So feel free to answer any questions ask any questions that you might have, and we can get things rolling. Meanwhile, I'll check some of the comments. Someone asked me about my diet here on Saipan, so let me get started with that one. Let's see here. All right. Stephen the person 713 commented, I'm planning on moving into Saipan in about a year and a half. Could you do a video showing some of the local markets and meals that I eat? There is one already. I will respond in the comments, but if you do a search on the channel for shopping, you will see some of my uh, shopping excursions here on Saipan. In fact, if you go to saipanliving.com and click on the videos page, I have certain select videos organized by topic. So if you go to saipanliving.com/videos, you'll see a section called shopping, and the videos I'm referring to are actually embedded on that site. So in terms of the meals I eat, I actually do have some photos because I'm documenting a health protocol I'm on right now. Just to let you know, I am vegan, so my meals are probably not going to look like ones you are typically used to seeing. But yes, I will do that. I'll include that for members. So here's a little encouragement for you to join as a member, any level member, and I'll include some of my recent dishes I've made here on Saipan, as well as some of in the past. My preference is to eat locally. As I mentioned, I am vegan and I don't do processed foods. I don't buy anything in cans typically, nothing with pesticides and MSG or food coloring or FDC yellow number 7 if I can avoid it. So my diet tends to be a little bit simpler and usually partially raw, partially stir-fried vegetables that I buy here locally, and some that are shipped in from the States or from Korea or China. But good question. Yes, I will include some of my meals. Um, I do have an Ask a Vegan channel. I haven't uploaded videos to that recently, but after this channel gets monetized, I may spend a little more time on that. It's Ask a Vegan, and you'll see some of the meals I've prepared in the past there. I believe I still have those up, but that'll also encourage you, I hope, to subscribe to that channel as well. All right. Let's go on to some other questions. All right, let's see. All right, feel free, as I said, to ask any questions. Let me just make sure this works here. All right, question. Rhythms and Retrogrades asked, thanks for that, Rhythm. Do I like breadfruit? Yes, I do. Um, I grew up in Jamaica, so breadfruit and yam and sweet potato and cassava and all those roots, dasheen, all those roots that we eat in Jamaica. I am partial to, and yes, I do breadfruit, and that is very popular here within Chamorro cuisine as well. They tend, and Filipino, I think they tend to boil theirs. We in Jamaica tend to roast ours. So I even roast mine here on my little butane stove until it's blackened on the outside and eat it that way. And sometimes I'll keep it in the refrigerator and give you more details than you might need, and slice it and fry it as a part of a typical Jamaican breakfast. All right. So yes, I do breadfruit, and it is abundant here. One of the things that I actually liked about Saipan, which I don't think I've mentioned actually, which was very key, is the fact that every single food that I grew up with in Jamaica, except for one, is available here on Saipan. So it's roughly the same latitude and on the equator, on the globe as Jamaica. So we have the same tropical fruits, mangoes and guineps and breadfruit and pineapples and um, sweet sop and sour sop and yams and everything that I grew up with in Jamaica is available here on Saipan. So I can um, replicate the meals that I had growing up, except for one. And I'll give you one guess what that might be. For those of you who are Jamaican who are watching this, then you might uh, uh, have a clue. But we cannot get ackee here on Saipan. So for me to get ackee here, I have to ask a friend or family member to send me a care kit that has some ackee here. Um, and hopefully it won't get confiscated when it reaches the postal service. All right. Um, okay. Eggs, and do they carry Bob's Red Mill oatmeal? Yes. Julian, Bob's Red Mill oatmeal, Bob's Red Mill products are available here. Now, when it comes to some of those um, healthy products, whether it's Lara bars or Terra chips or Kettle chips or Cliff bars or Bob's Red Mill products, I have not seen those any other place except one particular supermarket. So it's the largest one on the island, and it's Joe 10. And if you go to the branch on the in Susupi, you will find them there. And you can always ask Gemma to order the buyer to order some for you as well. But yes, Bob's Red Mill is here. If and when you get here, please do purchase it. It is a little pricey, and for that reason, uh, the average consumer here on Saipan is not really buying a lot of them. So to encourage Joten to keep stocking it, then we need more folks like you who might be interested in buying it. So yes, please we do have that here, and as more people uh, purchase, then we will be able to sustain our healthy lifestyles. Okay, let's see what other questions I have. Oh, all right. I'll give you one of the rants. Not a rant so much, just a little information that I was debating whether to share with you. It's now Sunday morning on Saipan, and on Friday afternoon, the water, I think, was first. I think the water was first. There was a water outage here on Saipan, followed by an electricity outage in certain areas. It's being reported on the Commonwealth Utilities Corporation website as a emergency maintenance that needed to be provided. But from Friday about midday to the end of the day, there was no water and no electricity. And then I think by Friday evening, the electricity came back, but the water didn't. And from what I'm led to understand, the reason the water is delayed is because obviously the pumps run on electricity, and they also the pipes need to be pressurized before the water can make its way to the various homes in the area. So for most of Saturday, we did not have water in this area. Fortunately, for most people who live here, it's not as dire a situation as you might believe, because most people are actually using bottled water. So most people would probably have a backup supply of bottled water that they can use for washing dishes or what have you. But for showering, then brushing your teeth, you would have to use bottled water for that. So the reason I mention this is as I've said before in previous live streams, sometimes there's a drawback to getting too much information. And when I first moved to Saipan, I did not have the benefit of a YouTube channel. I did not have the benefit of speaking at length with someone who was living here to prepare me for what life would be like. There was only at the time a single website that is now defunct, but it was very negative towards Saipan. And you could tell from the name of that website that it was not going to say complimentary things about Saipan. But at that time, I made the conscious decision not to click on the link. I had done a search on Google to find information. And when I saw this website, I saw the name, which I won't mention, the website whose name we shall not mention, and I decided not to view that website. And all these years later, I still have never viewed it, whether on archive.org or anything. And I made that decision because I didn't want my mind polluted by someone else's negative perspective of Saipan. And however based in reality it might have been, I didn't want to come here with the perception that of with the expectation of a negative situation. And I think that has worked to my benefit, because I came here with an empty slate, and I saw all the good on the island. And when I saw the bad, for me, it didn't outweigh the bad. But if I had um, viewed that negative website, I might have found myself saying, this is what he was talking about. Yeah, he's right. And that may have simply reinforced a negative perception. So being aware of that, I made sure I didn't look at that website. So I say all of that to say this, that as I mentioned things about the outage, I'd really like you to think to yourself and be conscious of what your perspective is. Are you saying as I tell you that there was a 24-hour water outage or electricity outage on Saipan, are you saying, uh, nope, that's not for me, can't handle it, I'm out of here? Or are you saying, well, if the good stuff is as good as Walt says, then maybe that's not so um, uh, insurmountable. For me, even if I had heard about outages before I came here, I absolutely know for a fact it would not have been a deal breaker. And that's because I grew up in Jamaica. And in Jamaica, we have brownouts and blackouts, scheduled, some unscheduled, all the time. So to me, it wouldn't have been a blackout. It would have been nostalgic. It would have been a return to the way things were when I was growing up. So I think some of the guys watching the channel who might be travelers, some of the guys who might have lived in Thailand or Vietnam or Indonesia or the West Indies are familiar with that sort of thing, that many other countries do not have as reliable utilities as the United States does. Um, but again, there's good and bad, there's trade offs. So it's not a major issue. In fact, when the lights went out, I just simply um, made sure that I had enough power on my laptop, kept working, and when it died, I stopped working and did something else. Growing up in Jamaica, when the lights went out, I distinctly remember doing homework, living with my grandmother in Old Harbor, doing homework by candlelight. It's just something that you get used to, and it's not something that you have a conniption over, as they say. So um, all of that to say, it's not well, for me it's not a deal breaker, and it's just something that has happened over time here on Saipan, in that during the 80s and 90s there was a great increase in the amount of the population here on Saipan. We had the garment industry, which brought in 20 to 30,000 more people. We had a booming tourism industry with flights from Japan. So the population and the demand on the resources exploded exponentially, and the infrastructure did not keep up with it. So I think that's what we experience every now and then, when we might have generators that need repair more frequently. But one thing I will tell you is that when I first came here, we had more frequent brownouts and scheduled service interruptions, whereas now it's very rare. This is the first one that I've experienced in quite some time, maybe the last 8 months or so. So again, not a deal breaker, but just something I wanted you to be aware of, because if it is something that's a deal breaker for you, then it's important to, I guess, that you know this. But I wouldn't want to fire hose you with things that may talk you out of a move that otherwise could be the best move that you ever made in your life. There are many of the advantages and benefits and perks and advantages that you can't even conceive of now, because you're simply not living in this reality. For example, there are guys who come here or who go to China or Thailand and um, comment that the whole male female interaction on this side of the world is different. And it's just something they couldn't conceive of. And it's taken them a while to adjust to how amenable people are to socializing, whereas in the States, they feel that things are more combative. So you might be viewing reality through a lens that you're not even aware of until you come here and it's challenged by a different reality. Then you would be doing yourself a disservice by talking yourself out of the move before actually experiencing it for yourself. So that's my long bit of advice as it relates to the outage. So as of now, Sunday morning, the water pressure is back to normal. I was able to wash my dishes and return to some semblance of normalcy. But it is something that happens here on Saipan, and unlike other areas, maybe even Hawaii and Guam, that you might move to, that might have their infrastructure a little more tightly maintained and controlled. Here on Saipan, things tend sometimes to occasionally get a little unpredictable. So, with that said, let's move on. Okay, so that was one big announcement I wanted to make as well. Um, okay, another comment someone made. Michael Dean said, and he has a long comment, so I won't read all of this, but um, thank you, Walter. Your perspectives are always golden, one that will always stay with me. In a previous video, you said people asked if certain areas in Saipan have prejudices toward people moving there, and you answered saying basically that you have observed that whatever prejudice people worry about is what they have a tendency to manifest upon arrival. So yes, I wanted to just stress that when we're talking about people's responses to the things like the power outage. If you have a tendency to see the negative in people and situations, then you're going to encounter that here, because anywhere you go, even in the United States, the mainland, you are going to run into situations that do not comport to, and people whose behavior does not comport to your expectations. And how you respond to that is the only thing that you have control over. I'll say again, one of the early lessons I learned in life is that you have absolutely no control over the how things unfold and how people respond. The only thing that you have control over is your response, how you choose to respond to to a particular situation. And one of the hardest lessons that I learned early on, fortunately, in my 20s, I might be dating myself, but I tell people I am 26 years old. But one of the lessons I learned in my 20s was the fact that I could actually choose my response. And up until then, I never thought about that, and I always responded in a knee-jerk way, automatically based on certain things. If someone stepped on my foot on the subway, I wouldn't respond physically, but I internally my response would be automatic. I would say, "Oh, what a clumsy oaf!" and "Why doesn't he watch where or she watch where she's going?" And I wish these people would learn how to balance themselves on a train. It took me a while. I had a good mentor in college who let me know that you can choose your response. You could actually choose to say, "Ah, someone stepped on my foot. Fantastic. I hope they have a nice day." But that is one of the hardest lessons to learn, and many people never learn that lesson, is that they can choose. And once you control and once you're aware of the fact that you can control your responses, then life takes on a whole different meaning, because then you're not simply responding to the um, uh, to other people's. You're not allowing other people to have control over your inner state and your mental well-being. And that is one hallmark of freedom, is that you can choose your responses and you choose to do so. So I mention that because someone sent me a Facebook post of someone's response to the power outage. And um, as is typical for some people, this person went on a rant about how unreliable, and that the people deserve more and that sort of thing, which is, arguably very true. But I think a better response. Now, he may be doing that just to get this off his chest, and maybe that's his emotional therapy. But in my view, your time is better spent using the free time to do something else rather than complain and whine, which is not going to get anywhere except just to have people either agree or disagree with you. Most people will agree, but to me, it's a waste of valuable time to vent like that. In some cases, it's justified, but to me, it's not. So if you come here with that sort of mentality, that sort of victim mentality, if you go anywhere in the world, then you are going to see, you're going to have confirmation bias, and you're going to see and be biased towards observing and identifying things that confirm the bias that you already have. So it's very important, in my opinion, for you to be aware that whatever expectations you come with, you are likely to see evidenced here on Saipan and anywhere else you go. Um, so I think that's a very important part as well to your happiness anywhere, whether you decide to stay on Saipan, whether you move to Guam, whether you continue to Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Philippines, wherever else. So that's my that's my take on that. Thanks for that message, Michael Dean, and that's my perspective. All right. Okay, someone asked a question. Dick Petersworth asked a question about basic houses for two people. I would have to look into that again, only because I don't want to give you any information that's not accurate. And unfortunately, I have always lived in apartments. I never, ever investigated renting or leasing a house. So I really don't know. And it just never came up with conversations I've had with friends. But as I think about it now, I do have a few people who, mainlanders actually, who live in homes here on Saipan. So I'll ask them for their advice and tips. All right. So we shall see. All right. Um, is it Julian says is it betelnut that is chewed on the island? Have you ever tried it? And if I plan on um, uh, a champion chewing match with the locals, would I be your manager? Okay, if you're not familiar with betel nut, it looks like a little guinea, but it's a nut that it's spelled Betelnut, betel nut, and it's chewed. Um, if you do a search on the YouTube channel, my YouTube channel, you'll see I did a video featuring John S. Castro and one of the workers at the one of the sites here on Saipan, the seafaring tradition site, gave a little demonstration of how he prepared betel nut. Um, but anyway, people chew it. It's sort of like chewing tobacco. You chew it to get a buzz from it, and it's part of the Pacific Island culture, and chook and yap and palau, and here on Saipan as well. So local folks primarily. Haven't met any Westerners who have adopted it as as a habit, but it's a prevalent thing in Southeast Asia, Malaysia, I've told Indonesia. So betel nut chewing is something that is a part of the culture. But so you'll see signs in the restrooms, for example, no betel nut chewing and spitting, because once you chew, then the spitting is also a required part of the process. Um, so yes, to answer your question, Julian, it is betel nut that is chewed on the island. So if you ever see a video with an interview with a local person, and you might see something that they're chewing, yes, that is betel nut. Um, you could have a championship betel nut chewing contest. I'm not sure what the um, how you would rate that. Whoever can chew an entire nut and spit the fastest. I'm not sure exactly how that would work. If you're a local watching this, let me know if there are levels, which I'm sure there are. There are levels to this, as the old boxing saying goes. There's levels to this, and so if there are, let me know how you would rate someone's proficiency or expertise or championship status as a Betelnut chewer. That would be interesting, and we would be the first site I'm aware of that covers a Betelnut chewing contest. Um, what I can tell you though is that here on Saipan and particularly Tinian, there is a hot pepper, Dona Sali, that is reportedly and reputedly extremely hot. And every February, there is a hot pepper festival on the island of Tinian, a Pico festival. So, in fact, it might be coming up this year, if I'm not mistaken. And you can participate, go to Tinian and participate in a pepper eating contest to see who can down the most peppers without expiring, and there are prizes for that as well. So that's something if you want to immerse yourself in local culture. The pepper eating contest is one that something that you might want to participate in. Um, okay, Earthcaster, moving to Saipan was an exodus for me. I made several videos about my experiences in the last 5 months. Okay, just occurred to me after this video, this live stream is broadcast. It'll be available, and people can check out your Earth iCaster channel and check out your videos as well. Um, but I just realized I do have Bobby Darin's video audio as part of this live stream, so it may get restricted. I'll see what I can do about that. Okay. And Michael Lean says, "All right, I never met a pepper I didn't like." Okay, so yep, I hope to see you participating in that and written about in the newspapers. Oh, for that, Michael. Okay, let's see. So, um, this is totally unrelated, but as I was thinking of things to talk about that are to expand the channel and maybe to um, just add a little diversity. There, as I mentioned earlier, I tend to choose my reactions to things and not get bent out of shape for the most part. Something I am proud of that whether it's being evicted years ago, I remember coming home and seeing an eviction notice on my door in my apartment in the Bronx, and it didn't phase me, didn't crush me. I looked at it, realized what it was, crushed it up, and threw it in the garbage, and then proceeded to continue to execute my escape from corporate America. Ended up having to live on a couch with someone else. But so I tend to pride myself on not responding to negative things too emotionally. However, there is something that is getting under my skin that I've noticed more and more, and I'll mention it here just to fill some time, and that is the demise, the degradation, and the destruction of the English language, um, led primarily by YouTubers and commenters on the internet. And uh, as a writer, but it's more so as a writer, just someone who values precision and specificity in communication. Seeing how people are mangling the language is something that gets under my skin. And it's not that I want to appear intelligent or more intelligent or have a better vocabulary or be a grammar police enforcer. It's for another reason, and I think this is it. Let me know if you agree with this. When I see people destroying the English language, what bothers me more than the fact that they don't know the language, and that is also something I think about. How is it that they not know this, and how is it that they not know that? Then that's one thing. But the other thing is, what bothers me more is the influence that that individual has, and that we have a saying in Jamaica, one fool makes many, that the influence of one person doing something bad will actually cause domino effect and influence other people. So one fool makes many. So it's it's okay that people don't know how to conjugate verbs and don't know how agreement works or don't know how to past participle works. But what bothers me more is the fact that there are people with millions of subscribers who are saying things like "I should have went to the supermarket," and they're influencing a whole generation of youngsters, influencing a whole world of people who are learning English for the first time, who look at this person who has achieved this level of influence, and they're saying to themselves, okay, this person is adult, this person is a newscaster, this person is an influencer with 5 million subscribers. If they say, I should have went to the supermarket, or by the way, the correct is I should have gone to the supermarket, then if they say it, then it must be true. So then you have people who are following that path, and now you have a whole generation of youngsters who don't know properly how to speak, and that's what bothers me more. The fact that you have newscasters, the fact that you have politicians, the fact that you have influencers who don't care enough about or simply aren't aware that they're saying things incorrectly and are having this inordinate effect on people. And you'll see it in the comments. You'll see it in the fact that there's no more punctuation in comments anymore. People don't know how to make a word plural. They're putting apostrophe s there to make a word plural. It's bad. And the worst one is that gets under my skin the most is the use of, and by that I mean the misuse of the word literally. All right. Now, if this is not a pet peeve of yours, then you've probably never noticed. You've probably already committed this, in my mind, this sin to yourself. But 99.9% of the people who use the word literally in any video on YouTube are using it incorrectly. I have a video I'll release on my Walt Goodvid's channel where I actually document dozens and dozens of people who are misusing it. Now, if you're not familiar, I'll explain. The word literally is, and the sad part about it is if you now go to Merriam-Webster, you'll actually see they have too jumped on the bandwagon. But for many years, and originally, according to the English lexicon, the word literally means in opposition to figuratively or metaphorically. So the example I like to give is this. You have a phrase like walking on eggshells. That's a metaphor, all right? That's a figure of speech. It means that you're doing something carefully, gently, gingerly, without making noise. You're doing something, exercising a particular degree of care so that you're not disturbing someone or a particular situation. So, for example, you might say to someone, when I was growing up, my stepfather was an angry drunk, and so we were walking. So living with him was like walking on eggshells every day, meaning we had to behave in a particular way. We had to watch our behavior. We had to not make noise. We had to walk gingerly as if we were trying to walk on eggshells so as not to disturb him. So it's a figure of speech. We had to walk on eggshells. Now, one day you and your brother are playing, and you went in the kitchen and you opened the fridge, and accidentally you drop a carton of eggs on the floor, on the kitchen floor. And now, in order to clean it up, while your stepfather is sleeping in the living room, so now in order to clean it up, you have to walk across that spill to get to the broom or the mop to clean it up. So you could say to someone, using the word literally correctly, on that day that we spilled the eggs in the kitchen, in order to get to the broom, in this case, we had to literally walk on eggshells, meaning the term walking on eggshells is now no longer simply a metaphor. You are actually doing it in real life in real time. So you could now say we were literally walking on eggshells, as opposed to figuratively or metaphorically walking on eggshells. And that has been the typical use of the word literally. It's not something that comes up in everyday conversation. It's not something that you would find yourself using frequently, because there are very few metaphors and figures of speech that can then be transposed into a physical, real world equivalent. So it's not something that would happen often. These days, however, as you've probably already realized, everyone is using the word simply to mean actually, or to mean emphatically, or people are starting YouTube videos with the word literally as their first word. It is annoying, and for those of us who value precise communication, it is something that gets on our nerves. I have stopped watching certain of my favorite YouTubers for that reason, because every time I hear it, it's like nails scratching on a chalkboard, and I simply can't abide sitting there getting. This is the other part: allowing myself to be subjected to the errors as someone who is getting knowledge from an individual. So, in other words, if I'm sitting and I'm watching your YouTube channel because I respect your intelligence, and I'm watching it because I want your perspective on certain things, and value your intellectual status, then when I hear you misuse the word like that, um, it amounts to a demerit, and I lose a certain amount of respect for the individual, and I can't sit there just listening and saying, why, how is it that I find myself here being tutored under the tutelage of this individual who doesn't know any better than to say I should have went to the supermarket. So that's the major pet peeve I have when it comes to the misuse of the language. One is the effect that it has on the younger generation, and two, I feel like an idiot sitting there watching this person who doesn't know better about how to use the language. So that's uh, so that's me. All right. So that's the rant I wanted to share with you, is my literally rant. So um, if that bothers you, then you probably already noticed it, that every single commercial, every single ad, every single YouTube influencer, even reporters. I was listening to a news report the other day, and the reporter on site at an outside event used the word literally 3 times within the course of a minute. This is a failure of journalism for a person to use that. Now, I know what you might be saying. Like I said, if you go look on the Merriam-Webster or dictionary.com, you will see that they too have embraced using it simply to mean to express uh, emphasis on a particular thing. So someone will say, I went to, I sat on the subway, and this guy, he literally sat next to me. Of course, he literally sat next to you, because that's what sitting next to you is. It is a literal act. It is a physical act. You don't need to say he literally sat next to me, because that doesn't make any sense. So anyway, um, if that's not a pet peeve of yours, and because of my rant, it has now become something that you'll notice, then I apologize, because you're going to be driven crazy by how often you see it. Okay, so you guys have been talking amongst yourselves while I've been ranting. So let's get back to the comments and see what we can do here. Earth Eye Castar says moving to Saipan was an exodus. I did that one already. All right. Moving there in just over a year. Cannot wait for the chill and calm. Aren't there become a time when you don't need women or okay bookless? All right, so someone is commenting on my rant, um, and they're trying to get under my skin here. So one man show forever says, "Ain't there become a time when ya don't need no more book learning or schooling?" Um, and he misspelled everything to get me upset. But I'm choosing my response. Okay, it's not a okay. I know there are people who look at this differently. There are people who don't care. There are people who will say, "I know what he meant. I know what she meant by that, and I'm not going to chastise them or fault them for not knowing how to spell." Fair enough. And I know the internet is filled with people who are learning English as a second language. So yes, it's forgivable that that there will be misspellings and the like in comments and on videos. And it's not about book learning. See, I believe that words mean things. I believe that it is important to maintain a basic level of communication and accuracy. And again, as I said, specificity when it comes to using words the way that they are supposed to be used. So, for example, if you don't know the difference between the subtle difference between the word accept and accept, I was thinking of some examples recently. Let's suppose you are in the military and you are working at a nuclear launch site, and you somehow have gotten to this level without knowing what the word you've heard the word accept and you don't know the difference, and you read the instructions on when to respond to a code and what to do, and you don't know the difference between accept or accept, you could cause some serious trouble with the fate of the world if you are not uh, at a minimum level of proficiency when it comes to the use of the English language. So to me, it's not about getting past a stage of book learning. For me, it's basic communication that we have a basic a bar of communication that we have sunk far below. So that's my take. So yes, book learning itself, that's one thing. You don't need that to be successful. Absolutely. And the million follower YouTubers who don't know how to speak um, are proof of that yes, you don't need the book learning in order to be successful by society standards. However, there are other aspects to this that I think are important, not simply how you feel about your education, but what your influence will be on future generations and on other people. So that's my take. One man show. Thanks for that. All right. Um, Julian says people who move to Saipan don't move there for the electricity. They move there because they want to live in a time capsule surrounded by tropical beaches and ancient culture. Fair enough. Yes. However, there are people who, whether they are conscious of it or not, have failed to take into account certain aspects of the simpler life here and then are blindsided by it and then revert to, as the saying goes, either to crashing out when things don't go their way. And I've mentioned this in a previous video. Um, Nothing against this individual in particular, but she, little things like that uh, about Saipan got on her nerves, and eventually she went on and moved back to stateside. Little things like not being able to get certain brands, not being able to get certain items in a timely fashion, not getting a certain type of stationery that she liked. So yes, the people who move here, some people move here for jobs, so they may not do a thorough vetting of what life is like. They may not be aware of what their non-negotiables are until they get here. So that's part of what I want to do here is, at least for those individuals, uh, I run the risk of making it too of making it easy for people to talk themselves out of it, but at the same time, I want to prepare those who may be a little more high maintenance for things that may be deal breakers for them. But I do agree with you, Julian. Uh, I didn't move here for the electricity, but again, I'm coming from a different background. I'm coming from growing up in Jamaica where things like this are the small stuff and we don't sweat the small stuff. So, but most of the folks watching this live stream are likely going to be mainlanders who may not be world travelers, may not have experienced life outside of the US, and may be likening it to Hawaii or Florida or California. And that is not the case. But thank you for that. All right. And Michael Dean says he agrees with my rant. Thanks for holding the line about proper words. Yes, except for this particular rant, you will never in any of my videos hear me use the L word, nor in my writing. I may have used it in some of my earlier books way back when, but you will never hear me use it even correctly, even because I simply don't want to add to the cacophony of misuse of the word that exists. But it's something that is one of my pet peeves. It's something that I cannot not notice when it happens. And it's something that for me will relegate a YouTuber to the dustbin of blocked videos. In fact, as I said, if I'm checking out a video and there's vulgarity or um, misuse of words too early on, I typically block the video. I don't want YouTube to recommend the channel. Which brings me to another rant that I've noticed. And it's something that just to pay attention to that I think might be interesting. The um, I have blocked many comedy channels and many political commentators on YouTube because they cannot seem to form a sentence without using cursing, without use of the F word. That's one of the reasons I cannot watch Joe Rogan. No offense to him, great successful YouTuber, but if you have ever noticed, he cannot form a sentence or three in succession without using the F word. And as a result, I feel personally assaulted when I listen to it. So as interesting as some of his guests might be, as interesting as his take on things might be, I simply cannot watch any of his videos because this is his MO. But one thing so the videos that I do watch tend to be people who are a little bit more have a little larger vocabulary, and they end up and they for whatever reason, whether it's religious reasons or just because they have respect for the language, they don't curse. But in the last few days, last few weeks, I've noticed even some of those have now started um, cursing, and it's something that I'm noticing. And the reason why it's interesting to me is this, and this is something again that I learned early on when I was learning how to understand people. One of the red flags I use when it comes to determining if someone is a potential friend or romance partner is their use of vulgarity and profanity. I learned um, that cursing is a sign of underlying anger. Now, you may disagree with that. You may quote me a supposed study that showed some of the smartest people in the world curse as well. But what I think that represents more than anything else is simply a higher tolerance for profanity and vulgarity that exists, particularly within American culture, that doesn't exist other places, and that unfortunately is now permeating the YouTube space. So typically Americans tend to have a higher tolerance. So even politicians, even professors will be okay with cursing. Maybe they're taking the George Carlin approach and saying it's just a word, but I think the words have particular power and meaning. And for me, growing up, I associated that with lower class. I associated that with lack of intelligence, so inadequate vocabulary. And then as I learned more about people, I remember reading a study, I can't remember exactly where, that there's a correlation between the use of profanity and an underlying anger. And I've seen it played out in certain individuals I've interacted with, whether they are conscious of it or not, that seething underlying, simmering underlying anger is a defining point of their worldview and of how they interact, and it will come out in other ways. So typically, if a person curses incessantly when, let's say, on a first impression when I meet them, I immediately check that as a red flag, and I realize that we probably won't be compatible in terms of how we communicate. Um, so what I've noticed is there's now a noticeable rise in the amount of cursing that even the folks who I'm used to watching. There's one in particular. If you look up Lionel Nation, he's one of the online commentators that I'm fond of listening to. A very extensive vocabulary, very well read, very well versed. He has a history in career in advertise in uh, public communication, radio, and television. So I do enjoy listening to him. I learn new words every day from him, and he does respect the past participle. He never ever uses the word literally. If he does so, he's doing it mockingly because he too is aware that it's being overused by people in our society, or poorly used by people in our society. So I enjoy watching him, but even him in the last few days and weeks has started using the S word and abbreviating the F word, and it's something that I think I'm um, filing away as a pattern that might be, if my theory is correct, then there might be a rise in levels of anger being expressed on even in certain conservative circles. But with that said, that's my rant. That's the rant I wanted to share with you. Is that what I'm noticing watching certain YouTubers? I've already given up on the comment section. I defy you to read any comment section, even I guess on my channel, and find a single comment of more than 3 words that is actually written correctly with a period at the end and not without a misspelling. Um, but that's my rant. We are running over, so I'm going to wrap things up. Let me just see if there's anything else that's important. Uh, yep, a Vampire Cat Legacy. The errors, I have a whole folder of errors that I've documented that I was going to do a video on, but I still have all of the errors. People are misusing the past participle. People are using there, and there. People are um, misspelling words that adults shouldn't be misspelling. I have a whole litany of errors that I might do a video on. I did a video already on my Walt Goodridge YouTube channel. If you're interested in commiserating with me, you can check that out as well. All right. When listening to an influencer, it's important to remember that all thoughts come from the spirit realm. Yes. So I would agree with that. If by the spirit realm you mean that individual's subconscious mind, uh, then yes, the words that they choose and the ways that they choose, how they choose to express themselves are an indication of their level of spiritual development, I believe. So I would agree with you. I would agree that you can tell something about a person's level of spiritual growth, whether they're a infant soul, mature soul, old soul, as well as what lessons they've come here to learn and what lessons they might be currently working on. And with that, you might be able to grant them a little bit of leeway. But yes, I would agree with you that you get some insight into a person's spiritual grounding by how they choose to communicate, whether they are conscious of it or not. Yes, I would agree with you. David Parker says our words can betray us, especially vulgar ones. Yes, absolutely. And the thing is, um, even though YouTube has a no holds barred and Wild West policy regarding vulgarity, I don't think it's in your best interest as a YouTuber, as an influencer, to indulge in that if you can help it. Because not recently, but one of the things that YouTube has instituted is the fact that they will limit the monetization of a video if you curse or if it's too vulgar within the first 30 seconds. After that, then according to YouTube, you're free to engage in vulgarity. But some of what they're attempting to limit, I believe, is children's exposure to certain vulgarities. So there is a little bit of pulling back that occurs, and we are still in a society, at least in the U.S., where the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, at least in radio, I used to do a radio show in college for many years. The FCC has certain rules in terms of what words can and cannot be said on air. And even though that does not exist for YouTube, in my opinion, it is conceivable that there could be a more conservative push towards that, and people may find themselves having videos demonetized and removed because they chose to be too vulgar and curse incessantly. There could come a time. I have no reason to suspect this, but just it's within the realm of possibility that there could be a time when YouTube starts to enforce certain rules of vulgarity, as in the same way that the FCC did for broadcasts. So it would behoove you as a YouTube creator to not simply indulge in cursing simply because you can and YouTube allows it, because I think it alienates a certain part of your audience. There are certain videos that I would like to recommend to someone. I watch a video and it has a good point that I think might be good for someone who has a child who needs to learn something, but I will not refer this video to that individual because of the cursing, because I don't want to be seen as endorsing this level of communication and end up influencing and corrupting their child. So I think if you create videos that can be disseminated and shared with other people, meaning without vulgarity, and then you would be better off in the long run, regardless of what happens. That's my opinion. Okay, we're going to wrap this up. Vampire Cat Legacy says, I agree. And I'm guilty. You spelled Anne wrong. Um, guilty is why I want to escape so I can decompress and heal. Yes, I agree. Many people who I've run into here on Saipan come here because they specifically want to get away from the mindset and the zeitgeist and the prevailing levels of behavior that exist stateside. And they make it their business to stay away from other statessiders who come here. So yes, I agree. It could allow you to decom uh, to decompress. Okay, we're going to end on this note. Um, What you are noticing, say Julian says, what you're noticing is the supernatural shift in the hearts of man, is what it is. Yes, as we move from, what is it, third density to fourth density, there are certain things that are going to happen according to the raw material and according to the quo channelings that there are, that we as a society on a spiritual level are moving from, I think it is from third to fourth or second to third. I can't remember. It's been years since I read that. But as a result, there are certain people who are now on the planet of a certain spiritual level to help with the transition. In fact, that's a one of a T-shirt that I have on one of my websites is a T-shirt that says, "Why am I here? I'm here to help with the transition." So we, as a global society, as a spiritual society, are moving from one level of awareness to another, and there are some of us who are here to help with that transition. So hopefully, some of you might be light workers, might be in the audience as well, and you can share um, our frustration, but also our willingness to help influence others. And finally, I'm going to wrap it up with this: is going to Pagan a thing? Let's see. Rhythms and Retrogrades ask, is going to Pagan a thing? Okay, so in the CNMI, the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, there are 15 islands, or 14, depending on which Wikipedia page you read, and that includes Rota, Tinian, Saipan, and then 12 other islands that comprise what we refer to as the Northern Islands. One of those islands is Pagan, which until the 1980s was inhabited. There are about 200 families living there. There was a volcano eruption in the 80s. I think it was the early 80s. And as a result, those families were moved here to Saipan. And there's been an interest in repopulating the island. However, the government does not have the resources to provide infrastructure up there, so that has not happened. There have been people who have gone there individually, small groups whom I've attempted to resettle, but in terms of CNMI government support, that does not exist. So, one of those islands, Pagan, that you're asking about, yes, you can go there. You would have to charter a boat to take you up there. I had the um, honor of going up there a few years ago. If you go to my discoverpagan.com site, you'll see my adventure there. I spent a week there with a research group. Living in a tent for about a week. So yes, it is a thing. You can go there. It would just be you, um, the scorpions, and I think some wild boars, and a lot of hot black sand. But it is more pristine. During the 40s, the Japanese did have a presence up there, so there is a runway on which a helicopter landed while I was there. But it is a thing. Yes, you could go there, and there would be no. You could charter a boat to go up there as well. All right. So with that, thank you. Um, the boat trip that I took to Pagan Vampire was 19 hours, and about 10 of those I spent on my back in a state of seasickness. But it if you have a faster boat, 12 hours, definitely let me know. It took me 19 hours to get to Pagan. Again, check out my discoverpagan.com site. You'll see if it's still um, working. You'll see a slideshow of my time up there. Now, with that said, please do check out saipanliving.com. I'd really like to encourage you to check it out. Give me some feedback on the site. Order something as well. Please also consider doing a super chat for this live stream. Or any of the videos as well. We're very close. I'm up to 1,890 subscribers, which is pittance in the grand scheme of YouTube, in the YouTube universe. But it's a pivotal milestone for us to get to 2,000 subscribers, and we're also knocking on the door of 4,000 watch time hours. So anything you can do to help will be greatly appreciated. This has been a labor of passion and a labor of love for all these years, but I do enjoy these live streams and sessions, and your support is greatly appreciated. So with that said, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next. And finally, Julian, thank you so much. First big live stream super chat on the Discover Saipan live stream of $10. Thanks, Julian. Much appreciated. You will forever hold a spot of significance in the growth of the channel. Really do appreciate it. All right. So with that said, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next live stream.